This was my identity.
Nobody talks about how freaking hard it is to be a dentist. What most people talk about is how this affects the patient. What nobody talks about is how this affects us. Dentistry is ready for this. Now is really the time. Welcome back to Wellness and Dentistry. Today our topic is going to be that you don't need more motivation. You may just need better systems. And this is a really important topic. You guys are going to love what we're talking about today. I am Dr. Kyle Stanley. I'm a dentist, tech entrepreneur, speaker, and researcher. And I am joined by my very good friend and your other host, Dr. Martin Mendelson. Martin is a disabled dentist, coach, speaker, and author. And his first book, One Move Makes All the Difference, is available wherever books are sold. And together, Martin and I have helped thousands of dental professionals pursue wellness in dentistry. Martin, what do you think about this topic? You don't need more motivation, you just need better systems.
Yeah. Well, it goes to the science of this topic, to be honest with you. Um, I'm a big fan of Mel Robbins, and one of the things she says is motivation is garbage because if you wait until you're ready, it's the right time, blah, 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 it will never happen. So, what's the other phrase? Done is better than perfect. And
Hmm.
so, because we're talking about dental practice, right? It really does become more about systems than anything else. And that might sound a little odd. We're like, how is everything a system? Well, the truth of the matter is that, you know, as a clinician, as a dentist specifically, your job is to treat patients, right? And everything else that goes on around you can't be done by you. So if it doesn't have a system, it ain't going to get done, right? And so we have to figure out what are the things we are going to do and then figure out how we're going to do them. And it's not about getting motivated to do them. It's about setting up ourselves for success to get the stuff done to begin with. Does that make sense?
A little bit.
Okay.
Do you need motivation to set up the systems, though?
If you look at the work on habits, so there's the cue, the craving, the routine, and the reward.
Hmm.
And so understanding what the reward is, and please use that word in all of its definitions. If you understand what the reward is, then when you get to a certain point that the task needs to be done, the cue, the craving for the reward will kick in and then the action will happen. So let me give
Mm.
you an example. Last episode, we talked about silent stressors in a dental practice. And one of the things I mentioned was I had a huge silent stressor around taxes and that I found a new bookkeeper, I found a new accountant, and I've never been late in my taxes, not even close. But, I would procrastinate because I hated doing a lot of this stuff. Okay, so how is this relevant? Well, my new CPA has a system called Verifile. It's a web-based secure portal for documents. It's become a game to me now. I get a 1099 in the mail. I can't wait to scan it and upload it because my reward is getting it off my hands.
Mm.
So it's all about human behavior. So let me give you an example. Let's say you're still doing the ordering and you hate doing it, right? What's the motivation to start the system? Well, the motivation may be, well, wait a minute. If I had a system that could potentially be done by another person in my team, right? Then I would actually save 3 hours a week. I'm just making that up. What could I do with 3 hours a week? Oh my gosh, I could go with my spouse to dinner. I could spend more time with my kids. I could go out with my buddies and play golf. So we get so stuck on the task, we forget about the reward if a system was in place to then create the craving, which is the technical term, which we're calling motivation for this episode. So how does that help answer the question differently?
I think that definitely helps. I'm thinking of exercise because that's a
Yeah.
hard one for people, right? Like,
Yeah, it's a big, yeah.
especially for someone like me who I exercise in the evening when I know that
Yeah.
it's not the ideal time to do it, but for me, it's usually when I have the time or when I can make the time. And sometimes I put my kid to bed and I just don't want to get up because I'm tired from the
Hmm.
day.
Yeah.
I always feel better when I come home, but there is that reward at the end that I do think about. I mean, some of it is very superficial of just I
Sure.
want to look better.
Sure.
Some of it is I don't want to be that old man that can't get down on the ground and play with
Yeah.
his grandkids.
Yeah.
And there's also too when my son will be going to bed and saying, "Hey, Daddy, you going to the gym tonight?" And I want to
Yeah.
be the dad that goes to the gym. That
That's
is
a
an
reward.
example for my child.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that is the reward. So it's funny when you say that. It's like, yeah, you're being pulled instead of pushed.
Well, what you just described is what James Clear talks about in Atomic Habits about outcome-based habits or identity-based habits. What
Yes.
you just described was an identity-based habit. And often I believe he does use, yeah, the example of, working out and so forth. It's like, what are you doing it for? Right? So if you're doing it to be buff, that's only going to get you so far or last so long. But if you're doing it because you want to identify as a person that cares about their health, that's a whole different ball of wax.
So how do we take that and apply that to the systems in a dental practice?
Well, tell you what, I mean, we didn't even talk about this, but give me an example. Can you think of one and put me on the hot seat?
Well, I'm just thinking, I'm kind of thinking it as problem based. So
Okay.
I have assistants that don't always show up on time. And so we do our morning huddle in the morning, and so they're missing our morning huddle, or they're walking in right when patients are getting here and they're kind of scrambling.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the problem.
So that's the
That's
problem.
the problem.
That's the
Yeah.
problem. Okay.
So I would
So,
say from that, I need to create a system that makes it so that they don't show up late, or if they do show up late, that there's going to be some kind of fe negative feedback for them.
yeah. Yeah.
And then the motivator would be I'm not stressed out in the morning.
Right.
My team is happy with each other.
Right.
Everybody makes more money. We enjoy
Hmm.
coming to work.
Right. So the example that I heard was that everybody's coming in late. And so what I will say that is a subjective statement from my own experience working with doctors and teams. When I hear that kind of stuff, the first thing I know right away is that there's no employee handbook, or it hasn't been updated, or it hasn't been signed, or it hasn't been communicated, right? And so, and if you don't have one, side note, connect with my dear friends at Bent Erickson. They're not financial supporters of this. They're just great people, and they can help you create an employee handbook that's aligned with current laws, both state and federal. But I think in the answer to that, the system is, ironically enough, is actually the handbook, the discussions, you know, I would I would bet a pile of money that that practice and that example does not have written job descriptions, does not have scorecards, does not
Mhm.
have,
Quarterly
monthly,
meetings or
quarterly,
check-ins.
annual
Yeah.
reviews.
Hmm.
I mean, it's just it's unfortunate that every time I hear something like that, I know what some of the primary problems are. So the system answer is actually the documents, the yearly update of the documents, the signing of the documents, the reviewing of the documents, to then have something to go on to then say, hey, listen, in our employee handbook, it states that we all need to be here, blah, 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 blah. The last 4 mornings in a row, you were 20 minutes late. I don't want you to think I don't enjoy having you as my assistant, but I want you to understand this is a problem. So we need to talk about it. And then you share your story. From my perspective, I'm all stressed out, blah, 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 blah. So, Kyle, given the fact that we have these documents in hand, you've acknowledged them, and you're still showing up late, what's going on?
Hmm.
Right? By the way, hint, hint, folks, that's I just did the Crucial Conversations framework that we go through in Lightside Live. But anyway,
Yep.
or you can buy the book, Crucial Conversations. So I think that's the system, right? So you started with a problem, and I ended up getting to the system to go at the 80,000 foot level, the system of yearly review and oversight of employee manuals, procedures, job descriptions, scorecards, and reviews. That's your system.
Yeah.
And the
And then what?
motivating,
Yep.
sorry,
You're
the
answering the
motivating
question.
factor is not losing sleep, getting up at 4 in the morning, worried that your primary assistant isn't going to show up when they need to. That's the reward, right?
Should we think about our dream scenario and try to identify where that is compared to where we are, and that will help us drive the systems to help with the reward?
Oh yeah, 100%. So I actually do this with teams all the time. So what's our ideal, right? What does an ideal day look like? Great. Let's talk all about that in as much detail as we can. And by the way, folks, you can do this as a personal exercise too. I actually did this in 2016 with my very first coach, who's become a really good friend. And it's amazing how much of it I ended up making come true. It was bizarre. But you go through in detail, thinking about every element of that ideal day. Then we go through and we talk about, okay, what's our day like now? Right? Now, be careful because we all have bad days, right? And so, do we have bad days or do we have a bad month? Do we have a bad month or do we have a bad life? Like, you get the idea. So, be careful not to use the exception as the example if you can. But maybe on that given day, it was such a crappy day that maybe you do want, I know I'm talking out of two sides of my mouth. Maybe you do want to use that because that's going to maybe be clearer as a trajectory from where you are to where you want to go. So, maybe I misspoke, but the idea still stands. Yes. What's our ideal? Where are we today? What are the differences between those two scenarios? And then what would need to change in order to go from where we are today to where we want to be in the future, right? And be very careful, as you and I observed with a colleague recently, to get stuck in the, well, that can't change because this is immovable.
Hmm.
Is it?
Right. Be your own devil's advocate.
Yeah. But what if it could, right? So you could ask
Yeah.
yourself, but what if it could?
Yeah, that takes a great level of maturity
Yeah.
and of self-awareness to
Hmm.
also be open to feedback.
Yeah.
And you may be blaming someone else and then realize, oh crap, it's actually how I set the expectation or
Yeah.
the the environment that I'm creating,
Yeah.
how I'm approaching them. Like
Hmm.
this is a hard one for me because if you asked me before my mental breakdown, basically, if I was a good leader, I would have said yes.
Mm.
And then after going through all of this learning with,
Yeah.
professional growth, personal growth, I realized, oh my gosh, I had no idea what I was doing.
Yeah.
I'm a
I,
better leader now. I still don't think I'm a great leader, but I'm definitely better. And that came
I,
from self-awareness, learning tools, practicing these tools, realizing what I can control, being humble about what I could possibly
Mhm.
have done better, have
Yeah.
done different.
I agree with you, and I feel the same way about myself. I mean, I was in leadership positions many, many years ago, and I was a very, very different person. And there's a bunch of different things I think, a bunch of different things I know I would have handled very differently today, which is the benefit of learning and growing. And so it's not a bad thing. It is, right? And so I think the other thing that I think needs to be said is, uh, I love this phrase. Please don't compare your step one to somebody else's step 20. And so I do believe, as one of the foundational principles of my first coaching certification states, we're all exactly where we're meant to be. And I believe that because you wouldn't be who you are without the journey that got you to this date, place, and time. And so by saying anything else, you're basically saying, that part of my life wasn't worthwhile. And I have a problem with that, right? So this is a journey and this is not a destination and things keep changing. And the good thing about systems though, truly, is that once they're in place, the modification of the system is a hell of a lot easier than creating it to begin
Oh, that's so true.
with.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you said that because I think a lot of people think you put a system together and then that's just kind of it. It's set it and forget it.
No.
And a
Mm-mm.
system should always be kind of circular that
Yeah.
you're gonna reassess at times. And you may say, well, gosh, we have a system, but this person still didn't get their post-op instructions.
Hmm.
What could have
Yeah.
happened there?
Yeah.
You look at it, you reassess, and then you change the system. Or
Yeah.
you tinker a little bit and you try certain
Yeah.
things. Oh, this worked better, let's do this. Or you automate it with technology. And it should always be those little micro movements that you're doing. You know, like when you're standing on a ball and your ankles are making these tiny little movements. It's
Hmm.
kind of like that same thing with a system. Is
Yeah.
there may be some little tweaking that you do over time that you're getting better and better. And you may be getting 0.5% better a month, right? But
Yep.
over time, that
Yep.
can be a really big change.
Agreed. Agreed. Well, it's all the little steps that get to the big results. And I think we forget that. Many of us forget that, you know?
Why do you think so many dentists try to just outwork the problems? They try to just out hustle the problems and say, well, I just need to hustle more instead of learning how to do this efficiently or thinking of a system or learning a skill that could improve this.
I'm thinking of Sean Accor's book, The Happiness Advantage, which I quote almost daily. Um, and he talks about the research around the idea that, and as dental professionals, it's even worse. What he says in the book is we spent upwards of 22 years of our lives being judged for our individual attributes and accomplishments in school. And then for the rest of our lives, our success is wholly contingent on, working with other people. Well, for us, it's 26 years. Or if
Yeah.
you're a specialist, it's 30 or
Yeah.
32.
Yeah.
And so we've been conditioned that success is based upon individual effort,
Hmm.
whether you realize it or not. And even if you're hearing me say these words and you're sitting here going, that's not true. Yeah, it is, right? At a basic constructional level.
Hmm.
So I would say that's likely why, I think.
Yeah. In our training, I feel like too, it's learn the skills and then just work harder. It's kind of how we're
Yeah.
taught, like
Yeah.
learn how to prep a crown, but then just work harder and work longer, and that'll solve the problem.
Well, what's an example of that actually is many of our colleagues have figured out how to work less and make more,
Hmm.
but most people don't think that's the way it works. Most people think you have to work more hours to make more money when the and look, I'm using money as a measurement. My apologies. That's the only thing I can do.
Yeah.
Because you can't measure, you know, you're stuck how you measure this.
Right.
Um, but the truth of the matter is that systems, here we go again, systems with scheduling, template, staff, your teams, deployment within the practice. Do you have a floating assistant? Do you have a floating hygienist assistant? I mean,
Hmm.
the sky's the limit relative to systems, but that goes back to systems too now, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Interestingly enough.
Right. It's a hard job what we do,
It is.
and we're usually not taught how to solve the biggest challenges.
No.
We're taught how to solve the smaller challenges, which are really the clinical challenges.
Well, isn't it interesting? You just made my mind explode. Really, a lot of us are taught single tooth dentistry versus comprehensive dentistry. And what we're
Hmm.
talking about is getting out of the, single tooth mindset in a more comprehensive mindset to, take a step back and up to be able to look at everything from a different perspective.
Gosh, that's so true. It's a great analogy.
Yeah.
It's just like the analogy that we talk about with treating your life like a treatment plan,
Hmm. Yeah.
treatment planning your life. And it's the same thing. I really like that.
Yeah.
We need to talk about that more. Like
It
single tooth
literally came to me
life
out of nowhere.
versus yeah, single tooth life versus
Yeah. Oh, that's
comprehensive,
cool.
you know,
Yeah.
interpersonal life.
Yeah. Yeah. That's true. That's true.
Well, any final thoughts?
I think that this has been a really interesting discussion, and it's taught me some things as well. And you can just think about the idea that we're not trying to over engineer everything, but what we are trying to do is think about where we want to get to versus where we are today and what different systems, actions, ideas can bring us forward, right?
Hmm.
Because you can't do everything and you can't remember everything. So, what kind of systems can you employ and deploy even just to remember things, right? And that can really change things for you. So,
Yeah, I think what I really will take home from this discussion is thinking about the reward and having the reward drive you to create the system.
yeah, and think about the reward, right? I
Yeah.
I would encourage people to pick up the book The Power of Habit. And I talk about this in my habit lecture. There's a really fascinating story of the initial sales and marketing of a product called Febreze, which everybody knows. And it's all about the reward. They were losing millions of dollars because they didn't hit on the right reward. And that's
Mm,
all I'll say. Go pick up the book. It's fantastic. It really changed my thoughts and understandings around why the reward is important and what a reward could be, and that a reward isn't necessarily something tangible or
right.
financial, etc. So it's
Yeah.
a really interesting read.
Super cool. Well, we hope we're going to see you guys in 2 days in
Yeah,
Dallas
yeah,
for Lightside Live because it is our favorite few days of the year that we get to
yeah,
spend with our colleagues, and Martin and I get to spend with each other too, teaching
yeah.
and learning from you guys as we teach. So we hope we're going to see you in Dallas, and you can go to our links to check out all the stuff that how you can join and all the rest of the stuff that we do, whether it's our online courses, our in-person courses, our research, our blah blah blah, all of the stuff that we do.
All
It's
the
all there.
things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll see you on the next episode of Wellness and Dentistry.
All right, take care.